Star Wars Outlaws wants to be your dream galaxy. We are getting a bit of a deep dive with IG, and honestly, I'm not feeling too hyped about the game. I am still hopeful about it, and hopefully this video is going to reinvigorate my dreams.
Is really tough. Making open world games is really tough, and making Star Wars open world games is the next level of difficulty.
Julian Garrity, creative director at Massive Entertainment, is up for a challenge. For the first time ever, we're getting a fully open world Star Wars video game. It's been a long time coming, but
and they're making us play as a bounty hunter. Why? I mean, if you really want to make an open world Star Wars game, the best thing to do is make an RPG, in my opinion. If you want to make it single player story driven, right? You make an RPG where you can be a bounty hunter, you could be perhaps a droid, or maybe or like a Jedi or a Sith. That is the open world Star Wars game people really want, but for whatever reason they refuse to let us make our own character in the Star Wars universe, except for that old Republics game. But man, a single-player Star Wars RPG would be phenomenal.
After back-to-back successes with both The Division and The Division 2, Garrity was in the mood to take a risk.
This may be just my approach, but even if it's scary, you've got to do it. You've got to lean into it. What's the downside to pitching a Star Wars game at Lucasfilm Games in George Lucas's old office? I mean, what's the downside?
You know, one thing I have to say that is definitely encouraging is I played The Division and I played The Division 2. The interior of buildings, your ability to go from the street into a building with, I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure there was no load time back then. So the fact that they could do that like relatively well definitely makes this more appealing, because The Division was on PS4 and they got that massive New York area to run pretty well. So I'm not like, this definitely makes it a bit more appealing.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you still have that experience.
Fast forward several years after that meeting, and Massive Entertainment is less than 2 months away from releasing Star Wars Outlaws, a fully realised version of the original pitch described in that office. An open world of dual ambitions: maintain the cinematic legacy of the films and create immersive scoundrel gameplay.
You see, I mean, look at this. Look, let's just rewind 2 seconds.
Described in that office. An open world.
Look at the gunplay.
Dual ambitions. Maintain the cinematic legacy of the films and create immersive.
I mean, I understand the game isn't in my hands and I don't know how it feels, but looking at the gunplay, I don't know, man. It's just, it's not doing it for me.
Gameplay that grants you the freedom of the galaxy.
I think it's taken this long to get an open world Star Wars game because of how, excuse the pun, massive it is to build a game like this. There are only so many studios in the world who build games of this scale. The door is then open for Massive to come to us and say, this is what we're interested in doing. This is the type of game design and gameplay we want. This is what we're thinking about in terms of an archetype. Where does that fit?
It's the outlaw player fantasy and it's open world. Those were the two main pillars that we pitched. Why open world? Because the outlaw fantasy really needs that to live and breathe.
It's a combination of, I think, our DNA as a studio, our background, when we think, okay, what do we have a lot of experience doing? What do we think we're good at? And this fantasy, the scoundrel in Star Wars, begs for freedom.
Massive was fully confident in its abilities to create engaging open worlds. The Division offered a bullet-filled action playground, while last year's Avatar Frontiers of Pandora displayed an ability to work well within a Disney license by building a near unmatched visual paradise. But Star Wars was the new challenge that
have to admit, even though I didn't play Frontiers of Pandora, that looked really good, which again is very reassuring. I need to play the game. If they could just release a demo or something like that, I'm sure that would go leagues to improve player reception of the game, because right now Ubisoft isn't doing so well in the eyes of the player. So if they could just release a demo or like an extended 1-hour gameplay clip or of like uninterrupted actual gameplay, it would heavily help the studio.
This team yearned for. Of course, deciding what kind of experience would live inside a Star Wars open world was the first thing that had to be decided.
We took a step back, of course, and thought, okay, Star Wars open world, what an opportunity. What does that naturally want to be? And it wants to be the full scale from the very small to the very big, meaning sitting inside a cantina playing sabak, being able to walk through the street, jump on your speeder, drive across the planet's surface, park literally your bike in your own ship, take off into space seamlessly.
That vision of full scale helped secure a green light from Star Wars custodians, but getting Lucasfilm's blessing was just the key in the ignition. Translating the cinematic spectacle of the original Star Wars movie trilogy into an open world, set between Empire Strikes...
You see that? That's what I find annoying.
But getting Lucasfilm's
Okay, we had the ship going up into space, the whole open world part,
blessing
and
was
right
just
before
the
it gets
key
to
in the
space,
ignition. Star Wars movie trilogy into an open world, set
boom, cut. Cut. Show me the takeoff from planet to outer space. I want to see this. This is very important for me to see. And you keep cutting it. Let me see what it looks like. Is there a loading screen? If there's a loading screen, that's fine. I want to see.
Between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, two of the most iconic films of all time, was the actual challenge. One that Massive set out to address in every aspect of Outlaws, from the way it looks and sounds to the type of action-adventure gameplay it supplies.
Fire up the hyperdrive.
Making an open world cinematic.
The sort of cinematic ambition that we had was in presentation. So that doesn't mean cinematics necessarily. What I care the most about is the interactive part, right? What we did was take a lot of inspiration from the original trilogy, but with today's technology. So very similar to what Rogue One did. What its aim was to do was to replicate.
That's fun. That's fun because one thing I always found really dumb about like stealth sections is that you'll take down one guard literally next to another person and they won't even react. So to see that your companion is going to distract the other guard is definitely a great way to keep immersion and not make you feel like you're just playing a video game.
Replicate a lot of the sort of filmic effects of those lenses of the 1970s. So you'll see barrel distortion on the sides, vignetting, film grain, chromatic aberration, and of course, all wrapped up in an ultra widescreen presentation.
It's a key
Thank
point
you.
for open world games at large, but I think very much for Star Wars as well. And not always scale in that it needs to be grand, but it needs to be conscious. The scale of Tatooine needs and should and does in our game feel very different. It breeds open sand dunes, long sight lines. You see, it's easy to pick up any little anomaly on the horizon, and there might be an opportunity for you compared to
You see, if you look at the textures here, not here.
open sand dunes, long sight lines. You see, it's easy to pick up any little anomaly on the horizon.
I understand we're moving fast. I understand that. However, nowhere on the screen does it say work in progress. So we can assume that this is the final product. The texture's all here. I should probably use my mouse. The texture is over here, over here, over here. Not so great. Now, if your entire thing is like we want to make an open world with a beautiful cinematic appeal, and your textures are looking like they belong on PS4, it's definitely going to break immersion. This can be fixed with patches. It's just something I noticed.
Horizon, and there might be an opportunity for you compared to the dense streets of Chiji.
Compared to like this area looks way better than the desert areas. I feel like their city and tight areas are definitely what looks the best. So I'm hoping that we're gonna have a lot more city exploration than just open vast wastelands, because from what I've seen so far, the wastelands don't look that great.
Genie.
Scale is something written into the very DNA of Star Wars, whether seen on the big or small screen. Greg Fraser, Rogue One's director of photography, recently told IGN that
if you watch any Star Wars film, that's what it's all about. It's, knowing how big a human is going into this massive Millennium Falcon. You know how big the Millennium Falcon is going to this massive Death Star. It's scale upon scale upon scale.
It's a philosophy Garrity and the team at Massive took into Outlaws when crafting the introduction to its open world.
One of our intentions was, for the beginning of the game, to make it feel very small and then bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So, beginning of the game, you start off in one room and it's claustrophobic and it's meant to make you feel a little bit trapped. You open up and it's city streets, but it's contained. And then some narrative stuff, and you steal a ship and you explode into the galaxy, and all of a sudden you crash land on this planet, which is wide open world. That sort of sense of everything growing for you, and not just the scale of the galaxy, but the scale of the possibilities for you as a character, as a rookie outlaw.
Kay Vess, the underworld's favorite new scoundrel.
Outlaws campaign tells the tale of Kay Vess, a young scoundrel looking to build a team from across the stars in order to pull off one big space heist and remove the death mark placed on her by the Zerek Besh crime syndicate. It's the basis of a story that evokes many other adventures from across both games and film.
I love Mass Effect 2. It was one of my favorite games. I think there were so many influences, everything from Ocean's 11, Ocean's 8, to Star Wars itself, you know, the previous films. Like, that heist feeling was always kind of in the fabric, to just tonally the films of Kurosawa, those original influences to George Lucas.
Knowing what sort of story you want to...
You know, I am certain if they had just made, instead of Kay Vess, we had an option where we could have a male or female character, kind of like Assassin's Creed. Or if they let us create a custom character, the game would have been way more... The people would have been... Oh no, it says work in progress right over here. My bad, guys. I lied. Or maybe I didn't lie, and it's only work in progress now. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm certain there would have been a way better reception if you could create your own character, because, like, we want you to experience the Star Wars universe in this massive open world. Play as this no-name bounty hunter that you've never heard about that kind of looks like a Han Solo ripoff, which is why people are angry. But you know what? That's neither here nor there.
To tell is one thing. Telling an engaging story in an open-world setting is another task altogether, and one that Kavari is well aware of, having written for Far Cry 4, 5, and 6, as well as The Division.
It's one of the things you always have to keep in mind is, how are we going to weave a narrative and an open world together so that we're telling the story but also giving you the freedom to sort of go wherever you like. We had a really clear approach on Outlaws, which was, there was Kay's journey. We called them sort of lighthouses. There were key points that we knew we want her to hit these, and then that makes her story kind of part of the wider Star Wars narrative. But between those moments, we knew early on that if you got distracted by curiosity, the world had to react to that. It had to expect that the player is going to go off the beaten path.
The things that lie off the beaten path are built in accordance to something Massive refers to as the 3-second rule, where within a few blinks of an eye, you can instantly understand the nature of a location or character and the story behind them.
Before you even put life in them, they need to visually tell a story about what kind of place it is, what's happened in the past, what type of life and events have taken place in them. So they get that lived-in feeling, and that lived-in, relatable, substantial feel, I think, is a hallmark of any good open world, but also very Star Wars.
Star Wars aesthetic has always been rooted in the idea of the used future, where everything from the largest spaceships to the tiniest droids have that instantly recognizable layer of grime. Those small details build up into authentic, cool, and bespoke spaces, something Massive has always managed to build into its open worlds. The Division and its sequel are packed full of memorable levels ranging from New York landmarks to Washington DC museums, and that philosophy is being transferred to Outlaws' many planets. Its main missions promise to take us to iconic locations such as Imperial bases and Jabba's palace.
We can lean into the virtual tourism aspect of, hey, what is the distance between the moisture farms and Mos Eisley and the cantina? There is a linear roller coaster story golden path, if you will. And around that, of course, there's the open world.
That's the dream I know I had as a kid. That is what I've always wanted from a Star Wars game, is that, you know, when I'm on a journey, when I'm entering into a quest, it might start on foot. It might start navigating a High Republic cruiser that's crashed, but I want to be able to jump into my speeder and blast off, hop into the Trailblazer, take off into space, maybe land in a space station and meet some characters that factor into my quest or journey along the way. And so that sort of connective tissue of planet or moon to space was crucial, because that's kind of the fantasy that I think players are hoping for.
That fantasy and freedom is evidently at the core of Outlaws, and while all 5 planets and moons won't be instantly available to hyperdrive between, Geraghty claims it won't be long into Kay's journey until the galaxy opens up.
Is it 5 planets and 5 moons, or 5 planets and moons together? Totally 5. English is hard.
Very structured intro that leads you to crash land on Tashara, which is a moon that we created with Lucasfilm Games. And once you finish the sort of linear narrative on Tashara, the other planets open up. And there it becomes completely non-linear, and you can choose to tackle those in any order you want.
Okay. A galaxy of exploration.
Exploration of these worlds is highly encouraged, with maps that are not, at least initially, flooded with icons and points of interest, because you're seeing these places from a fresh perspective.
Kay, as
That's
a
nice.
character, hasn't seen the galaxy.
Yeah, like I can definitely say that in a lot of the Assassin's Creed games, like especially Valhalla, once you get to a certain point, the map is just filled with icons everywhere all the time, and it's like, hey, you're playing a video game, and don't you forget it. So if they can make things feel a little bit more immersive with the open world of Star Wars, I can't see it doing better than expected. However, I am still very much on the fence.
So the first time Kay comes to Tashara is the first time you come to Tashara. And it's not an unknown, uncharted place. So you'll have a map of where you can see there's mountains over there and stuff. But discovery is what gives you more information.
You're going to have to take some risks. You're going to have to go to a cantina, and you can eavesdrop, pick up on some conversations that will lead you to another location that reveals a location within the open world that you have to get on your speeder to go and find. There will be a fog of war that you'll be able to clear up, and that's really where your curiosity will open things up even more.
Each of Outlaws' worlds vary in size. Tashara, Massive's newly created moon, is around the same size as the jungle planet of Akiva, but a little smaller than the vast desert of Tatooine.
It was less about how big, but more about how long in terms of traversal with the speeder it would be. 4 or 5 minutes non-stop, which doesn't sound like a lot, but once you're committed, it's a fairly large amount. You're always going to be distracted. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which was one of the games that we were looking at while creating this, you have different zones, so it's 2 or 3 of those together.
And that doesn't even take into account the vast areas of space that surround each planet and serve as entirely different areas of orbital exploration and opportunity. We'll cover that, as well as the Starship side of the game, in greater depth later on in this month's IGN First.
I said, run.
You know what I feel right now? They're saying that Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it was like, you know, a couple of zones. You take those couple of zones, you take 3 of those zones, you put them together, and that makes one area of our explorable planets / moons, which sounds fantastic. However, my issue with Assassin's Creed Odyssey is that getting from point A to point B wasn't fun. It was actually quite boring. So I just ended up fast traveling constantly, and I kind of just stopped exploring the world because the traversal was boring. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but let's look at Forspoken for a second. Terrible game. Fun traversal mechanics. This I cannot deny. If you're going to have a massive world with a lot of things to explore and a lot of things to find, one thing I think developers definitely need to start doing more now is make the traversal fun. One of the reasons why Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2 have a very, very high completion rate for the exploration, if you look at the trophies percentage amount, right, is because moving through the world is fun, and I think they have that possibility with Star Wars. They did it in Star Wars Survivor. It was fun to get from place to place. However, it was much more linear experience in comparison to Outlaws. So right now, my fear is that I'm going to play this game. It's going to be so big, I'm going to get bored of going from point A to point B on my speeder. And I'm just going to fast travel all the time. And I'm not even going to really appreciate the world in its entirety.
In terms of mission design, we've seen action ranging from stealth infiltrations, frantic dogfights, high-speed chases, and intense blaster battles, with some quests even evolving to include all these elements at different stages. Star Wars Outlaws is thus perhaps better thought of as a single-player narrative action-adventure in the wrappings of an open world, something more akin to Marvel's Spider-Man than dense RPGs like The Witcher or Ubisoft's recent Assassin's Creed games. Its mixture of popcorn action and blockbuster narrative ambition is a departure from Massive's gear-based experience on The Division. It's a new chapter in the continued evolution of a studio that started life as a real-time strategy developer.
I think if you look at the evolution of open world between Division 1 and Division 2, there's a life, a dynamism, a systemic quality to Division 2 that we didn't have in Division 1. I'm not talking about the presentation, the soft values at all. I'm talking about pure gameplay experience, single player or cooperative. That was very, very important to us to have as a living, breathing element that engages players while they're playing Outlaws.
It's an evolution of what Massive has been doing in their games for years now, keeping worlds feeling bustling and alive even when set against post-apocalyptic backdrops or in the midst of galactic wars.
We, in both Division games, but especially in the second one, developed what we call living world systems. So same thing here. We have systems that make sure that the world is always alive with movement, traffic, speeders zipping around, the Empire patrolling.
I can definitely say from what they've shown us, and this is actual work in progress, it is quite impressive on how lived in the open world looks like. That's something I have to say. I have nothing negative to say when it comes to how lived in the open world looks like, based on what we've seen so far.
The syndicates have footholds out there. Sometimes more substantial events happen. It's really up to you if you want to engage or not.
Perhaps Outlaw's most interesting method of breathing life into its open world is...
Okay, this is interesting. We finally have a pause screen. Let's see what we have over here. We have vehicles, so we can at least assume that we can upgrade our speeder or have more than just the one kind of speeder. We also have equipment. Hopefully we can change Kves's gun, because that little blaster probably not doing a lot of damage until the end game. We also have abilities, so we know that there's going to be some kind of skill tree, at least in the game. Map, journal. Journal is probably going to find your quests, and like characters you've met, things of that nature. Then we also have reputation. I'm really hoping that there's going to be like, I hope that your reputation goes up with different factions and not just like your reputation overall in the galaxy. I would like maybe I have a very high reputation with the Hutts, but not a very high reputation with, I don't know, the Fets. I'm sorry, I haven't done any Star Wars research lately. I'm a little rusty when it comes to my Star Wars lore. And then over here we have data bank, which I'm guessing is going to be kind of like your compendium, all the people you've met, the enemies you fought, the weapons you found. And last we have experts. So I'm guessing these are the people that are going to give you information, that are going to lead you to different quests, or perhaps like materials, weapons, and treasures, maybe?
Its approach to character progression. There's no leveling up or incremental stat boost to drop experience points into. Instead, K's ability and equipment are linked to experts, people you'll meet across the galaxy who'll grant you upgrades in exchange for work.
I heard you're the best shot on the planet.
Oh, and you want to be second best.
They are full-on characters. You don't know exactly who they are, what exactly they have to offer you, and how to reach them from the very beginning. So there's this journey of discovery here as well. Intel, clues, okay, I think there's a guy or gal or something that can...
This is the issue. This is what's bothering me so much about the gunplay. Every time she shoots...
Oh, who they are, what exactly...
Every time she fires her weapon, she always strikes the Han Solo pose when he like shoots off his blaster and stuff. And I think that, for me anyways, it's what makes her feel like a Han Solo ripoff, is that every time she does something, I'm just reminded of Han Solo and how she's not him. If they tried to make her her own character and not like piggyback off Han Solo, again, I think people would be more receptive.
They have to offer you and how to reach them from the very beginning. So there's this journey of discovery here as well. Intel, clues, okay, I think there's a guy or gal or something that can do good things to my speeder here. Meaning these are really strong incentives for you to move around and journey through the world and expose yourself to other fun things on the way. And once you reach them, there's a character there to interact with and an adventure to go on, because they want instantly just, oh, here you go, right? And then they essentially open up a little regional progression for you where the nature of unlocking those things is also very tangible.
For example, after finding
that I actually find is cool. I always did find it weird in games, like you'd go up to a stranger and like, here's 1,000 gold, let's be friends. So the fact that like you find these people that can help you but won't help you until you help them, I find that interesting and engaging.
a Jawa by sourcing their location from overheard intel at a cantina, you can complete a mission for them in order to gain a new skill. In this case, it's to venture into a dead Sarlacc to find a pristine tooth from its second mouth, which you can then exchange for a laser turret for Kay's starship, the Trailblazer. It's a smart way of blending gameplay progression with narrative befitting of the Star Wars criminal underbelly.
You can go on a journey with a character such as an expert who is going to teach Kay a new skill, give her a new upgrade, to her blaster. That skill, that upgrade definitely ties into Kay pulling off the heist, but it's also very much its own journey, which is in the Star Wars tradition as well.
Another system aiming to marry gameplay with narrative is how Outlaws tracks Kay's reputation with each of the criminal syndicates. Her bond with each of the Hutts, Pikes, Crimson Dawn and Ashiga clan will strengthen or weaken depending on your choices in dialogue and mission objectives.
I'm gonna finish it. Shame.
Your reputation moving in the positive direction unlocks a lot of things for you. Everything from actual access to territory that they control, where you might have been able to sneak in otherwise, to landing pads in the open world, discount with traders affiliated with the syndicate, unique, really exotic rewards, etc., etc. But if you really get on their bad side, that's another thing that you will feel dynamically in the game, because they actually send hit squads out for you in the open world.
The reputation system doesn't just sit inside of missions though. Smaller opportunities regularly present themselves to boost your relationships among the syndicates. These might be smaller skirmishes where choosing to get involved can benefit you and the organisation you side with, and a strong bond may even help you out with the bigger threat looming over the galaxy.
This is getting bad. Hold tight!
If you've, for whatever reason, ended up wanted and you're being chased by Empire and you cross paths with a syndicate that you have a really good reputation with at the moment, they might join in and help you out.
Outlaws directly follows the events of The Empire Strikes Back and sees the Imperial forces at the peak of their powers. In gameplay terms, the Stormtroopers are basically like GTA's police and adopt a similar wanted system. Find yourself in a restricted area or accidentally fire a stray laser bullet at a Stormtrooper and you'll quickly find yourself in hot water. It's by no means a revolutionary system when it comes to open world design, but one that is made all the more exciting thanks to a lick of Imperial black and white paint.
It has a good range of escalation and de-escalation. It's really up to you if you want to try and hide or maybe bribe an Imperial officer that's a bit corrupt in a city somewhere, or try to jump to a different space region. But you will feel it, and let's just say there are Death Troopers for a reason.
Hang on!
Beyond the main missions, expert side missions, and the reputation system at the core of it all, many other snackable activities exist in Outlaws open world. These range from quick contracts such as smuggling and stealing, gambling in Sabak, to playing asteroid-filled arcade shooter games, and betting on Canto Bight's Favia racing. All of these activities bolster your ever-growing supply of credits, which can be used to purchase new customization and gear options for Kay, her pet-like alien companion Nyx, and the Trailblazer. And yet, there's more. Emergent events frequently take place throughout the open world, whether on land or in space.
Every 2-3 minutes, there'll be something that's happening, whether it's an ambush or the Empire arresting some civilians or combat with some criminal syndicates, and it's up to you whether you want to engage or not.
So with so much to do in Star Wars Outlaws, how does Massive go about avoiding open world bloat? With a near endless galaxy of opportunity, there's the worry that things may spiral, feature creep sets in, and everything just gets too big.
As long as they don't force you to interact with every little thing that happens in the open world, I don't think bloating is going to be an issue, because like I've played a lot of RPGs in my life, and the ones that I can't stand are the ones that force you like to interact with all the systems all the time. I usually stop playing those games. So as long as you're giving the players the choice to like, oh, there's an open world event here, I can just keep moving on and not pay any attention. If they do that, I think they'll be fine.
The studio had a clear plan from the start though, leading with variety over size, quality over quantity, if you will.
We don't want things to be just big for big sake. We need it to be contained, always fun, always proposing different activities.
It's about calibrating size to substance. When you see something that breaks pattern, that stands out for whatever reason, and you go there and look, there's something there to do, and that repeats frequently enough, and that the quests, the bespoke kind of content of the game makes use of it, so that it doesn't feel like a separate experience, but it's all one.
Of course, no matter how much there will be to do in Outlaws, one thing that can be expected is a healthy helping of nods to the larger Star Wars galaxy. Lando is set to make an appearance, and we've already seen a glimpse of Han Solo and Carbonite, but it sounds like they might just be the tip of the iceberg.
There's Easter eggs, there's characters that you'll meet along the way across the main quests and across, whether it's the experts or, you know, the wider stories you're going to stumble across. August 30th is a really great date. I recommend bookmarking it in your calendar.
August 30 is right around the corner. A short wait for many players for whom an open world game set in a galaxy far, far away has been a long-held dream. I could feel a similar passion for Star Wars coming out of each person I spoke to at Massive, and for them, I can't help but get the sense that that dream is a shared one. Making open world games is tough, and bringing open world to Star Wars may well bring an extra level of difficulty, but for Garrity and the team, it's been a challenge worth taking on.
I'm not as young as I used to be, and I'm getting to that point where I think I can count the number of games I can do till I'm put out to pasture on one hand, and it becomes more and more important to me to choose what I do, because it's really important for me to do quality work with people that I love working with, and Star Wars is definitely bucket lists.
So, where do we go next?
Anywhere we want.
We'll have
Well,
more
I'm really
exclusive
hoping it
looks
works
at
out. I really hope it works out. Honestly, I want this game to be good. I know I've given it a lot of flack in the past, and I'm going to continue giving it flack until I get my hands on it and I'm able to play the game. And so far from what I'm seeing, the open world looks interesting. The exploration looks interesting. My issue is the gameplay. The gunplay does not look like fun. And when you're in a massive open world area, if the traversal isn't fun and the gameplay isn't fun, then I'm not gonna enjoy playing your game. It's massive. You're expecting me to dump a lot of hours into it to explore the game. You need to make sure that the gameplay is fun. And from what I've seen so far, it's not really doing it for me. However, I haven't played the game yet, so I will only be making up my mind once it's in my hands. What are you guys saying? Do you think that Star Wars Outlaw is going to be dead on arrival, or am I being a little too harsh on it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because we're on the road to 400. I'm so excited. If you don't want to help, well, remember, at the end of the day, I'm just some guy on the internet, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. If you want to see more of my face, be sure to click the video you see on screen right now.